Hi guys, this series of videos will be directed mainly for the project. I've got a few inquiries. I'll try to answer them as we go. These inquiries mainly based on the project. The first thing, few students already asking about how to draw the corridor and how to create the cut and fill volume for a corridor. So to start with, we will start first of all with drawing a corridor for the project. Simply to be able to draw a corridor, we need to organize the cross section of the road. I'm looking at our project. One of the quick things that we should always do on a project, try to measure how much the road reserve that we're dealing with. So if I measure the width of our project, I found it's exactly 15 meters. So our road reserve, that means the edge of the boundaries of the road, is about 15 meters. Okay, so we need to create a cross section that will be suitable for 15 meters. To create a cross section, as we agreed, we go to assembly, create an assembly. We'll call it assembly 1, A1, and we'll call it general, and we'll keep everything here the same, and we'll go okay. Where do we want to place the assembly? Just pick a point on the screen and the software will zoom in to that point. So from there we open the tool palette between the tool space and the properties. So click on the tool palette, that will open our tool palette here. So I will hide, indent the prospector as I don't need it for now. I'll keep the properties on one side and the tool palette on the other side. So to start with, we've got to add lanes to our road. We'll use the same assembly what we used during our classes for 15 meters wide road. Similar to what we went through during the class, this cross section here. This cross section, it's about 25 meters wide for the road reserve. The road reserve is from boundary to boundary. Instead, for our road, we will look for a 3.6 wide lane each side rather than 3.5. We will not have that car park space, and we will have the urban curb and gutter. We will have that area for planting trees. We call it boulevard. Rather than having it 3 meters wide, we will have 1500 wide, and we will have the sidewalk. And rather than having that as a 3 meters wide, we will have just 1.5 meters wide, and we will have another small gap there, or another boulevard, external boulevard of 300 millimeters on the outside. So let's try to construct something similar. We start with the lanes to start with. So I'll go to the tool palette. I'll choose the lanes. Before I start placing the lanes, I have to choose the right specification. So I'll keep it 3.6 meters wide, but I'll make it a fall of -3. That's what we usually use for a bitumen road. So by clicking on the yellow square on the right hand side, because I'm working on the right side here, that will add the lane. We're done with the lane. We go to the curb. We add urban curb and gutter general. We click on the top right hand edge, and that will connect our curb and gutter. From the same menu under curbs, we can add the urban sidewalk. The last choice, urban sidewalk. Before I add the urban sidewalk, let's make some changes. So the inside boulevard we agreed on, that's the inside boulevard here. We agreed on that to be 1.5 meters wide. And the sidewalk will keep it as 1.5 meters wide. And we agreed on the outside boulevard, that area there, to be 0.3. For the slope, 2% shouldn't be a problem. And we go add the sidewalk to the top right hand side. Okay, after the sidewalk, we have to add the daylight or the cut and fill edges. So the daylight here, we choose the daylight general. Daylight general, the only one difference in urban developments, we keep the cut and fill very shallow. So rather than being 6 in 1, we make it 10 in 1. So all what I have to do here, flat cut slope, type 10, enter, that will make it 10:1, and we're going to do the same for the flat fill slope. 10, enter. So by choosing these two, by clicking on the end of the sidewalk, and that will add your cut and fill. I'm using this arrangement because we already measured the width of this arrangement, what we added so far from this point here, the end of the boulevard, all the way to the crown point will make 7.5. That means altogether will be 15 meters. So to get the entire thing mirrored, we select everything on the right hand side, and we from the contextual ribbon we can choose mirror, and that will get our cross section made for both sides. So let's frame just by drawing a circle, framing that cross section, make it a bit larger so we can see it. That's it, we got our cross section drawn. Let's move on to, we close the tool palette, we don't need it anymore. Undent the tool space, and let's start working on the corridor. What we've got so far, we have the profiles for all the roads. I've got 3 different roads. I've got one road here, what we called it the West-East Drive. We've got the Park Terrace between them, and we've got TAFE Court on that side there. So I've got the alignments, I've got the profiles, and I just created the cross section or the assembly. Obviously we do have the surface, the existing surface. That means we can start creating the corridor. Creating a corridor, it's very easy, one-step job. Ask me what's the name of the corridor. Let's call it West-East Drive. So I've got West-East Drive created from an alignment and a profile. I'll choose the right alignment and the right profile. Always we choose the proposed profile, not the existing profile. And we choose the assembly and we choose the surface. So when you create a corridor, which is a very common mistake that will bring you lots of problems down the track, keep in mind you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 important selections has to be done. If you missed in one of them, that will create problems down the track. Especially lots of people, they forget to choose the target surface. So we'll click OK, and that will give us the information about the corridor, what's the alignment and what's the profile, what's the assembly, where does it start and end, and what's the frequency. We can amend the frequency. We can make the frequency 10 meters on a straight, or keep it 20 on straight. We can, around the curves, drop it to 2 meters, and we don't have any spiral, so it doesn't matter here. And vertical, we can keep it at 2 meters. Press OK, and OK will ask you to rebuild the corridor. I would say yes, and that will create our corridor. Okay, so this is how to create a corridor for a road. I'll start the other video after I create this corridor here. So we start, and the intersections, because you can look into the intersection in a different video. We can start looking into the creating the cul-de-sac, and we can afterwards start looking into the cut and fill.